how the sort of the recommendations for action, how they develop through the process. And I'm assuming that at the end of it, midway through it or whatever period, you had a program plan for change. And I was thinking about the example you gave of the sales guys and the operations guys. The operations saying that you should be a voice from the client and vice versa, voice to the client. So how did that all drop the bunch of action?
Yeah.
Can we just talk through that process?
Yeah. Well, it's worth saying that we've done some of that, but not at all. So what we identified was 3 or 4 hotspots. How do operations help sales sell more? How do we get operational delivery consistency in a way that we've not got? Finance, how they're perceived in the business, and an issue around IT, the IT function. So what we deliberately did is to get the ball rolling, we looked, as a top 20, we looked for what was some quick wins that could emerge out of there. And some of the quick wins were simply creating some dialogue, Nigel. So, for example, we've got finance, for the finance problem. Finance have now been invited onto each management team. So they now have a senior member of finance and they're part of the sales management team and the operations management team. It was a simple task, but that's just getting dialogue happening, getting engagement happening in a formal enough way that they became members of the team. So they weren't just there for the finance section, they were formally invited onto the senior team of that function. Those hotspots, we decided, are the only 4 areas that we're going to focus on improvement for this year, perhaps. And what we did is we justified that because we saw those as key delta areas around our 6 critical targets for this year. So again, we brought it not just what was AcQube telling us, what was it telling us in relation to the big delta result areas that we're looking for improvement as a business as a whole for that year. So instantly what we've done is we've only picked 3 or 4 areas. We're allowing dialogue to happen, both around that, and we're allowing intra-function dialogue to happen around what they're going to do about their perception, how people see them. So teams are actively, and we're not stifling this just now. We might, if they end up emerging, say, we want to spend 3 people working for 3 weeks on this, I think that would be a different discussion, but where there's intra-team discussions, it's around, here's 5 things we could do that will connect with a stakeholder group in a way that we're not quite doing. To be honest, at the moment we're not controlling that, we're allowing it to happen. Where it's inter-team, it's going into this portfolio. If it's not to do with these 4 improvements, we're not doing them at the moment. So good idea, not urgent. That's how we're controlling that. And what we're doing is we've created an internal improvement budget, and any non-billable resource that we spend on improvement has to be justified. So each of these improvements are emerging as a set of business cases. We're getting really clear focus of the 2 or 3 things we're going to do against those 2 or 3 things. So whilst we're not stifling conversation, we're giving it focus. It's either focus on these 4 areas, and the stakeholder group in these 4 areas are well defined, the communication started, the participants know who they are, or it's intra-team, and we're just allowing them to get on with it. Because we don't want to ruin momentum that's emerging within local improvements.
Do you have an idea about the use in terms of client perceptions or other stakeholders outside the company?
Stakeholders involved in the company, so in terms of investors, board members, all colleagues, we've actively included them from the very start. Partners and clients is a discussion for us, actually. So the strategic intent that's emerged, we're very keen to engage our partners with that and to test it with some clients. It's not value proposition type of material, so it's not salesy material, but it is what we're about, what we care about. And so we're talking with our sales team around, so how can we get our voice to the customer on this and equally get the customer input back. The partner piece, I think we will be a bit more rigid about, because part of our learning is that we've not been great around our partner strategy. It's a small business, we need partners as part of our distribution channels, and therefore we need to buddy up much more consciously, much more commercially oriented. And so, whilst we won't use the ACT cube, we'll certainly use some of the learnings from in that exercise and setting ourselves up for those dialogues in a way that we've not done. So that's another thing.
I think that there is a lot of opportunity to use it. If you look at a value chain, so often in organisations now the value chain extends beyond the organisation. I was involved in an outsourcing joint venture with the company I was a member of at the time, Barclaycard. At the time, the focus of the organisation when setting up that joint venture was on the contract and not on building the relationships across the joint venture. And I believed then, as I do now, that that was the reason why many of those relationships became very tense. And I feel that something like this, which really focuses on the relationships and understanding what the role of each function is in achieving the goal, which in this instance was efficiency and effectiveness of customer delivery, would be very valuable. So I think it takes a bit of courage, I think, quite often, doesn't it, to bring your customer into something, because you don't want your customers to think that you're not doing well and that's why you need their help to improve. But I think by bringing your customers and other partners, if they're really partners or even suppliers, into the conversation, Fee and I have also worked in that situation, I think you can just make all the value.
Martin, really, I think, having listened to your very insightful presentation, you contrasted two different scales of organisation. And I think in your talk you alluded to the difference in doing the survey that Scale made. I just wondered, in execution, what was your experience of Scale?
I think the momentum certainly took longer in HBOS. We started to see some returns after 6 months in HBOS, but it was really 18 months. It was almost second time around that you started to get the stability and the maturity, the language consistency. You started to get sustainable performance. So there was a couple of highs along the way, but the curves started to be more consistent. It was a longer journey in HBOS. But also the impact's greater, so there's more zeros on the savings, there's more impact on the service performance, and the momentum scale creates a bigger customer impact in a small business. So I think HBOS, you couldn't do an HBOS with the same management support that you did eliciting. But equally, as I said, I think you've got more tools in your toolkit in a large business. If I'd known now what I knew then, I'm not sure I would have been brave enough to take the choice. And what I mean by that is partly me as an individual. It was quite a pioneering thing to do, and just my nature would be, wow, I'll take a more safety first approach. But actually, I don't regret it for a minute, because I wouldn't have created the step change, and so the result was far greater than I would have anticipated. But I think the important point, though, is if I was to do it again, I would look to get some early traction in a way that I probably didn't in HBOS. And I think there's some learning from the eliciting experience of just forcing some early topics of engagement down. You're forcing alignment on a few things, just to almost get some wins and build credibility for the approach you're taking. Whereas there was a bit more trust in HBOS. There's a bit more trust that they're the bosses, so it must be right somewhere. And I think I'd probably want to say, can you chunk it up in a way that has all the integrity and momentum of the full colleague engagement, but creates a little bit wins early on that gives you, almost funds some of the next